All right. For those of you who are going to be seeing this on the VOD, which is probably where most people are going to be watching this, since there's not many people in the chat, and I tend to throw these up at the last second whenever I have time. Um, I'm going to be basically doing these every so often where it's live, so folks can ask questions either pertaining to what I'm doing, which will be either playing games sometimes, or I'll be looking at some things in Blender or some other programs, so folks can kind of see like my process when I'm working on either creating a video or something else. So if you want to get a chance to check out a a different way of looking at learning some of this stuff, or just pick my brain of what it is that I do, you're welcome to join. Hey there, Slink. So you're welcome to come in and check out what I'm doing on here and all that. Usually what I'm going to try and do actually is I'm going to try and set up a schedule for some streaming time. I just don't like the pressure of having to do stuff when I just don't feel like it. So um, I may be doing that. I may not. It just depends a little bit on how I feel about doing it. If you want to get updates, just make sure that you jump into Twitch, make a handle or whatever, and then sign up or all that, and then follow this. Follow my tag in here. The links are always in the video descriptions on YouTube when I do the VODs and stuff. Yeah, I mean, Slink said that I should start making advertisements on the Discord servers. I probably should, but I like get really lazy when it comes to this type of stuff. I especially now with doing some streaming, I have to sort of get used to it first before I really feel comfortable. A lot of times, and I said this before in the video I did recently where I was looking at the wrench, doing hard surface modeling and stuff like that. Um, I often will practice something a few times to make sure that I can do something that makes it to where somebody can really follow what I'm trying to teach or show them. And with streaming, it's like you'll get to see mistakes and how I deal with the mistakes and stuff like that, which can sometimes be a little bit embarrassing on my side. And folks who are used to the channel, they won't realize how much work actually goes into making sure that it's gonna be easy to understand from other people's perspective. And I sort of like mentioned my uh in my video that's coming out today, I mentioned, that, well, you don't know because you haven't seen it yet. I mentioned that like I practiced it a few times and made it like 6 different ways, and even like the final time that I was like showing everybody how to make it in this new one, I did it a different way. So it's like there's always differences on how I'm gonna sort of like present material, and it's just part of the fun and frustration with doing things in certain programs. But this shouldn't be too bad because we're just looking at some new updates that I was kind of interested to see what the development is on ProRender, because I'm pretty active on their GitHub with reporting bugs and issues, and I was more so a proponent a couple years ago for the render engine because it was very, very fast compared to Blender cycles. So with ProRender, I was able to get out some animations that were very, very good looking, very, very fast, especially like fluid simulations and splash sims and stuff like that. Or if it was a particular type of project, the rendering system was much, much faster. But with the new updates with Cycles X and Global Illumination and some things like that, and the way that they're changing just the rendering system altogether, has sort of closed the gap between. And ProRender with its new 2.0, at first I was very excited about it, but it's kind of been a slow progress to get it working to where it's usable, and it has a like reaction. The reaction time of the viewport has been a really big problem. It's incredibly slow. Even with my 3090, it chugs quite a bit, which is quite a problem when you're making projects and you're sort of like zooming around and you're trying to make materials and things. It's kind of a pain, and it's very unstable. At least that's my experience with it. Even the official builds have been very unstable, and it crashes quite often with very specific, peculiar things that, not even peculiar things, just things that you do that's normal. It would just crash and have problems. So I occasionally will jump in and look at the new updates and see if it works well so that I can let everybody know, because there's people on the channel who are using this. I'm just going to take the text off the screen since I'm really just talking about this now. Um, they're using ProRender because Mac, it's more supported for what they're trying to do, and it supports their GPU or whatever is with their system. So some people rely on ProRender because they have Mac, and it's kind of a crappy thing when you're trying to use something that should be released and ready to go, but it's just not released yet. Yeah, Cycles X is pretty great. I haven't fully upgraded to just using that because I think it's still in beta or alpha or whatever, but I'm going to move into that once it's a little bit more stable and all that. I still haven't even gone full on with all the geometry nodes. Everybody like lost their minds because of geometry nodes and stuff, and it was like 90% of what you saw was the same exact tutorial that everybody gave on uh on the geometry nodes. You got like 15 other people trying to like ride the wave of views and stuff. But yeah, I still haven't like gone full on into that. I'm kind of a traditionalist with some things, and sometimes slow to change, because there's sometimes problems that people don't talk about. So the build that I'm using is this one right here. So it's 3.219, and I got a message that a couple problems that, like this volumetric fog issue that I reported a while ago last year, that apparently should be sort of fixed, and there's some volume stuff that should be fixed, and the issue with hair that I talked about with some of the more recent tutorials I've done. I was waiting on doing a hair shading video with ProRender because I was worried about it just not working, but as far as I know, it should have been fixed. So we're going to see if some of those issues were fixed in this video here. So I'm going to kind of show everybody how you're supposed to update this add-on. So if we go to add-ons and you go to ProRender, if you already have it installed, it shows up here. You have to unselect this. Then you have to reopen Blender. Okay. Then you have to go to Edit Preferences again and do a search for ProRender, and then click on Remove so that it's gone. Then close it again, and then reopen it. You probably don't have to close it again, then reopen it, but I always do it because I want to make sure that it's been saved and all that. So then you go up here to the add-ons again, and we install. So I actually have a location that I keep everything. Let's see. So you can see here I have Blender add-ons, and then I have all these different things here. Flip Fluids is amazing, by the way. If you don't have Flip Fluids, it's the best $75 you'll ever spend. So if we go to, where is it? ProRender here. Development, and then this one here. And then click this on, and we should be good to go. Now, what will happen often, and this is just a pointer for anybody who's doing this, what will happen is you'll start playing around with ProRender, and then it's going to crash, and then you're not going to have ProRender again, because when we set this add-on, if you don't close this down and then reopen it, it won't save the preset that you have that add-on installed. And so if it crashes, it's going to like forget that you installed it. Okay, so I'm going to close this down again and then reopen it again. And we should have ProRender right there. So that way, basically, if it crashes, we will have the add-on still installed and it won't be a problem. So let's go ahead and change this to ProRender. And let's just see some of the way that the viewport's going to be setting. So sometimes you have to wait if you're using a GPU. Um, manually save preferences. Yeah, yeah. I just close it down and then open it back up just to make sure that the autosave is there. Oh, hey, good afternoon, Soul Nate. Yeah, so we'll have to wait a little bit because it's actually going to be compiling the shading cache and everything for this particular engine. So we're going to have to wait a little bit since I am using, as you can see right here, the NVIDIA 3090. So we'll have to wait while it compiles that. With CPU, I don't think you really have to wait too much, but we'll just wait here with the GPU. Kind of excited to see some of these changes because according to the release notes that I read, there should be the hair shading should be fixed and volumetrics should be properly fixed. So we'll have to see how that goes. Still waiting for some other things to be a lot easier, like procedural texturing and stuff like that. But who the heck knows? Oh, I'm going to be watching Fire Walk with Me tonight while we're waiting for this. I'm going to be watching Fire Walk with Me tonight with my friend. And I never finished the Twin Peaks TV show. And so, because it got weird and I just like stopped watching. And then recently, um, he's like, nah, man, you got to watch it to the end. So I watched it. I watched the rest of it with him because he made me. And everything from about season 1.5 to to the uh, to the almost the last episode is kind of crap. So, uh, but the last episode is fantastic and totally worth it. And apparently, this movie's really weird and messed up. So I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so it's working now. But what you're seeing, this black that you're seeing, is the denoising. See that right there? So that's the denoising, and then it upscales. So there seems to be an issue with this. Let me see if it's just GPU related. It might just be GPU related. Let's check. Yep, so it's just GPU related. So CPU is fine, but apparently the GPU, it errors out. So kind of annoying that that's still not fixed because I know that's been there for a while. Let's see what happens if we turn both on. I have a feeling that it's still going to be black, knowing how things work. Oh, no, it actually worked. So I guess because it needs to use the CPU to actually run a lot of this stuff, like denoising, a lot of stuff actually uses the CPU to do things. I guess the engine is actually saying, like, if you just have the GPU enabled, it's basically saying only use the GPU, which then makes it to where you can't do the denoising or something. I don't know. It's very weird. I don't know why that's so much of an issue. Using CPU and GPU on ProRender has always been an issue. And back in the day when I did a lot of renders using it, I could only use CPU or only use GPU. You couldn't use both together because there'd be a whole bunch of render artifacting. And I don't know if they ever fix that. We'll take a look at that in this video, but we'll see. One more thing, if you look at the very edges as I zoom out and I zoom in, do you guys see that black border that goes around it? So I remember a while ago that being an issue where you would do some viewport rendering with a lot more objects, and it would actually set your camera different than what you actually saw on your object. Like your object would be right here and scaled up, but it would be like larger or smaller or something, and you would click on it and the outline would be somewhere else. It was really, really weird. So I don't know why that's still there. It's really bizarre, but it's probably just an anomaly that has to do with the fact that they're building something inside of this program that then gets used in other programs too. Because this add-on is not just for Blender; it's used in like a whole bunch of other stuff. So it might just be something that's left over from that. All right, so let's see how this can work with some other render systems. So I'm gonna just put together some. Let's do a proper, let's just do a regular UV sphere. And let's do one of these. And do that. And we'll do one of these. Okay. Add a little bevel to this too. All right. So I'm gonna just add a couple. Let me actually save this because who the heck knows what happens when you're doing things. So let's just make a new folder here. We're gonna call this ProRender testing. All right. So shadows are looking pretty good. That's fantastic because I know that shadows have been a little bit of an issue for this particular engine. So these shadows are actually looking pretty nice here. It's nice to see that when you're seeing, like, I don't think a lot of people understand this, but ProRender's basically using a rasterized and a uh, ray traced engine at the same time. And so the softening of shadows was a little bit of an issue in the beginning. So it's nice to see that there is a change, that there's some better stuff happening with that because it really was not looking great. Let's change this. Let's go to a HDRI. Actually, before we do that, because of the stability sometimes of this, let's open it up without the rendering on. And let's do my favorite, Small Studio One, which they changed their name, by the way. It's not Texture Haven anymore. It's something else. I don't remember what it's called right now. But if you still look for Texture Haven, it'll be like, Google will be like, did you mean this? And it'll be something different, but it's the same site. It's still free, all that kind of stuff. It's just different now, which is interesting. Polyhaven, that's right. Ah, look at this. Okay. So that's neat. You're actually seeing from the light here, the shadow size here is making those rings. I always like doing this stuff to like try to break things because it's interesting to see how stuff works. So let's see. Yeah, thanks, Link. Cool. Very nice. Well, very nice reflected light down in here too. I don't know if you guys saw that, but that reflected light there looks pretty cool. I'm actually going to turn off the denoising and upscaling. Let's see how it properly works here. So this right here, all this stuff sort of doesn't necessarily work exactly right from what I worked with before. I'm going to change this to like 32 and then per preview update. It used to be that if you change that to 1, it would be really, really fast. Banding visible when rendering. Yeah, so that banding is specifically because of the light that I had. So you'll notice that I changed, here I'll show you. I don't know if you noticed because I might have been going too fast. If I change the environment light to a 1, right? So you have this, outside light that's affecting the scene and causing different shadows and different effects to happen. So if I take the light here and I change the soft size to a 0.01, I was like, I'm not really seeing a whole bunch of a difference on the shadows and all that kind of stuff. And so I went back in here and I changed this to a 0, and the banding is caused by the light size. So that's the shadow soft size. That's caused by that because it's trying to sharpen all of the shadows, and that's too like low of a number for it to properly render correctly. So it looks like a 0.02 looks okay, but if you see this right here, you can start to see some of that geometry. So let's see if, because this actually was a problem when I was working on. I'm gonna just add a subsurf to that. So this was a problem when I was working on some stuff because you can actually see the normals. F12, no, it would most likely, like this banding would probably be there if I did a full render. But we can check that easily. So let's move. And you guys, I'll have to rely on you to tell me if my audio gets weird. Sometimes when I'm doing this stuff and I'm recording based on the CPU and GPU usage, it will mess up my audio. So if you hear anything weird, let me know. So let's move the camera over here. And I'll turn this on so it's a little bit faster. So let's just render that area. So we just need like 32 samples. And let's render that. It should be there. It shouldn't, yeah. So you could see there's the banding. So you have to have the light size up a little bit more than that in order for it to not have this really harsh banding. Yeah, it's unfortunate because sometimes you really want those sharp contrasted shadows. And it's another one of those reasons why you want to have an HDRI in there. You don't want to always rely. This is nice though. This reflected light is very nice right here. If you're doing an abstract with just these forms here, it would be very nice to see some of this stuff here. Anyway, yeah, so sometimes that's just what happens with the math that's being created by these light nodes. And I'm actually concerned that the usage of Ies Textures is still not going to be usable. So let's see what the threshold is for this. So 0.03 has banding, or 0.02 has banding. This still has some banding down in here. Let me just turn that off so you can see it. See, when I'm moving around, do you see how I don't know if you can see this, but when I'm moving, do you see how the size is changing? It's like stretching and squashing in form. I don't know if you guys were able to see that. Let me see. You see that? So that's that weird stuff that happens when it's like trying to capture it within the camera and it changes the sizing. So sometimes I've seen that actually causes a problem when you're doing a render. So 0.03 has an issue with the banding. 0.04. I think that, yeah, weird, right, Slink? So 0.04 looks pretty good. It's still somewhat there. I think 0.5 was good. So you can't get as sharp of shadows as you can in cycles, but this is pretty good anyway. I mean, I don't know why you'd want any more than that. Let's just do this here. Let's move this on this side. And I'm going to see if textures are going to work. You can see how the viewport is slow to update. It's always been like very, very, very slow. And well, at least with 2. Okay, AMD needs to make new GPU API to make games and rendering it. Yeah, I mean, AMD is working on, you know, their API, like they're using Vulkan. This uses Vulkan. And I think, and I'm not exactly sure, but I have a suspicion that this is kind of a way for them to test out their rendering API for video games and stuff like that. Because I don't think they make a whole lot of money off of, I mean, they don't make anything off this engine because it's a free thing, it's a free download. But I have a feeling that they're using it as sort of a testing ground. And LuxCore, if they would put the work in to mimic this, would be a really good idea, I think, for the AMD GPUs. But they need to get away from OpenCL. They have to do something else. OpenCL 2.0 is supposed to be getting worked on, but who the heck knows anymore? Even the people who made it originally abandoned it, which was Apple. So it's kind of a little bit dead in the water. But anyway, let's see if the Ies texture can work. I'm actually going to save because sometimes this crashes it. So let's go to our Ies textures. Sometimes this happens where it doesn't show the image with it. That sucks. I don't know why they did it this way. Let's try Area Light. Okay, so that looks like it's working at least. It looks like it is, but it's really bright. Let's add a empty. And take this. There. Wow, that's really bright. Let's change this to, let's do that. Okay. Well, it looks like that's working. But yeah, so here's the problem. This is the problem that was going on before. Let's see if I can change this. Yeah. So with Ies Textures, they still haven't figured out how to make it have soft shadows, which is a really big. It makes me very sad that that's the problem, or that that's still an issue, because Ies Light Textures are one of the best things to use, and it's still not resolved as far as that's concerned. So that's a bummer. Um, I almost think they shouldn't even have this in here if they're not going to do it right, because it's kind of a pain in the ass to have to, sorry to use that kind of language, but it's really a pain to have these really awesome light textures and not be able to use them properly. On an area light, don't even think you can. Yeah. Let's see, we can try it here. Yeah, it uses a light. So see, those were the images. So it uses an image that's on there. It's not even, there we go. So it's using an image to project. It's not using the actual texture. Disabling the filters? I'm pretty sure this isn't going to work, but let's see. Yeah, I mean, this shouldn't work because it should only be showing on here an image, not an actual, because an Ies light texture, I'm pretty sure you know how it works. The IES light texture basically controls where there's actually points on that object that projects light. And as far as I know, you have to use a sphere or a light that allows that to happen, which basically turns it into a sphere geometry. That's as far as I know about it. IES lights, you have to put them on a circle or a sphere. If you put them on a sphere and then you project you have like a target, like I do here, it acts exactly like it does in cycles, except for it uses the geometry to control the size of the light and all that stuff. At least when I did my lighting video, that's what I remember it working, or how it worked. I don't know if you can use an area light for it. Well, I mean, if that works, awesome. From my research before I did that video, everyone was saying that you should use a sphere to project. So if it works, yeah, definitely send it to me so I can check it out. If that works, awesome. But I don't think that this is doing what we want it to do. It's a little hard because I can't actually see what's on there. But let's see if I change this to something else. Let's try. Let's try something that is weird like this one. I use that to emulate viewing angle of screen. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if this is how you're quote supposed to do it, awesome. As far as I know, nothing that I've seen says to do this, and you're supposed to be able to use it on the light, the regular point light. I really want to just see something that's obvious if it's changing the projection. Usually the three-lobed light makes it obvious, but it looks the same here. Let's try putting this at a 0.1, 0.01, and a 0.01. Yeah, so that should have made it to where we see the three-lobed light. Because if I change this to a point, and I change this to the three-lobed, if it's working correctly, we should be able to see that texture. There we go. See, you can see the actual, it's like a flashlight sort of shape. So it looks like the point light is the way to do it, but they haven't figured out the softness yet. So I don't want to send in a report yet on this because they have way more bigger fish to fry. But I mean, the viewport is actually much better than it used to be. But again, or not again, because I haven't said it yet, but we only have a few objects here, and that might be why it's fast. So let's see. If we take the viewport and we change this to 32, and actually, let's flip these 16, 32. And OpenGL, da, 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 da. Don't ever use tiled rendering in this, by the way. Don't ever use that. I have a feeling we're about to crash this. Let's try. There we go. And preview samples at 32, one per. Let's try changing this to a 32 and see how well this goes. Like, here's the thing that's really weird to me. So I changed that to a 32, and if I change that to a 1, yeah, I'm gonna do that in a minute, Slink. Let's redo this. I just want to see how 132. Yeah, it just doesn't seem to change much of the speed here when I do that. It's fine. Okay, let's do some other materials. So let's do a glass, and we'll do this. And then this one here, let's do one of these. No, we already have one of those. Let's do a metal. Let's do one of these scratchy ones. Actually, let's just do this one because it's kind of cool. I like this one too. It's really cool. Where's that orange one? I think that's an extended or metallic paint. Nope, that's where it just was. Where is it? Car paints. This one's really cool. Let's just do this one for metal. And then sphere, let's do just this rubber thing. Let's do something like this. And then the floor, we can make this. This is a lot more stable than it used to be. When I did stuff like this that I just did there, where I added this mapping node and everything else, it would totally crash. So that's a good thing. So it's looking pretty good. It's very clean. That's the really great thing about this program is how clean everything looks when it's rendered, because it uses that rastering system with the ray tracing. So that's good. Let's actually change this to a different material. Let's try this one. Yeah, this is a lot more stable. When I did this type of thing before, it would just crash everything. Very nice. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Even with this light, it's not showing the edges, which was a little bit of a concern on previous builds where you could actually see the normal. I'm going to remove the subdivision on this real quick. And let's see if we can see that. Nope, looks good. That's a great step in the right direction. Cool. That's great. All right. Let's do some changes. All right, so let's allow caustics. And let's do a absorption. Let's get this light. Let's just have it like this, and we're going to pull it right up next to this sucker. Let's make the world a little bit darker and see if these caustics work properly. So we got a little bit there. Let's change this to a 0.1 and pump this up. Yeah, so we got some of this working. Which is great. Let's see what happens when we, let's take this, scale it, and place this here. And let's put that on there. And let's change this just to a just flat white. So yeah, it looks like there's some good stuff going on here with the way that it's refracting the colors in the volumetrics. It didn't used to do that, and you can see that. Hopefully you guys can see the color cast going on that direction and the mix right there. Let's try to make this a little bit more obvious. And throw a little bit of roughness on. Yeah, I mean, glass in ProRender has always been one of the reasons that I used it, because it's clean and it looks really good. Glass, for some reason, just looks fantastic. And you can go in here and switch up the, let's see here. So if we take this, pop this up. Actually, let's just go 32. So we get some more samples with that. Oh, interesting. They have a texture compression here. Huh. Interesting. I don't remember that being there. Let's see. So glossy, let's do a 16. Let's do a 16 here. And let's do a 16 on shadows. And pixel width, get a little bit sharper with some more points of light in there. And there's no clamping, which is good because a lot of times what would happen is people would have this on. And you see how you can't see any of that cool stuff that was in there? It started automatically with the clamp radiance set to 1 because it's cleaner. So a lot of people would jump in, they'd get their scene, it would look clean, but it wouldn't have the quote brightness that Cycles has. And they'd be like, well, it's good, but it's just not bright. And it's like, well, yeah, because your radiance was clamped at 1, but if you put it up to 10, which is the Cycles standard, you start to see more of those caustics and the bright points and stuff like that. So it's a kind of a funny thing. I mean, I was guilty of the same thing when I was new. So I don't even want to try to do node baking. Ooh, does transparent background work now? Let's see. I don't think so. Let's try. Let's see if it actually works. Yeah, so it works, just not in the viewport, which is great. It's going to confuse a lot of people because it doesn't look like it in the viewport. Interesting. Let's see if it does the refraction properly of the background. Yep, does that right. So that's good. These are all good things. All right, volumes. Let's take a look at volumes. So let's see here. So this, where is it? Is it in here? Here, here. All right, so what that does when you create the fog object down here is it's supposed to create an automatic volumetric like fog. Yeah, let's kill RPM. Yeah, I mean, I think I've said this before in other videos or when I was talking to other people, but I used to be on a like a research and development team at one of the companies that I worked for. And basically I would just break everything. And they put me on the development or the that particular team because I just constantly would break everything that they would make. So they're just like, well, why don't you be on the R&D team and we'll just give you all the newest stuff so you could just tell us all what happens and break it. So, but it's important to do these things and test it out to see what works and what doesn't. But let's see if this actually works. Oh dear. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I'm just going to give it a minute here, see if it actually will start with this volumetric. I think last time I tested this, I had the same issue where it just took a long time because it's a big object, but let's see. It had this really, no, it's supposed to, I think it said that volumetrics are supposed to be good now. I know that volume fog, like volume, heterogeneous volume does work in some things, but you have to do these very peculiar things to get it to work. So we'll test it out on another object if the fog thing here crashes it or doesn't start up again. We'll test it on a different object because I know that that works. I just haven't done a video yet on it because it's weird. It's very weird. Like based on where your camera is, it will only show up, and then even then you're not really sure, and it will like shoot it from another side. I don't know if I can explain this. It was like if you made a large box object and you put in a heterogeneous volume, it wouldn't register unless the camera was set at a very specific distance and you couldn't be inside the object. You had to be outside the object to see the volume, which doesn't help when you're trying to make like um, a scene that has overall, volumetric look to it, like, fog or whatever. So very weird. Where we're really going to break this is when we look in the different render versions, the low, medium, and high versions, which is one of the biggest benefits of this particular engine, but it never works right, which is a very, very big shame. All right, looks like we crashed it, so let's close it and open it back up. See if we can do something a little bit different then. All right. So fog, not only does it not work, it seems to be creating some really big problems. So let's hide these suckers. And let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's see if I can remember how to do volume correctly. Oops. Definitely not an emission one. Or actually, I think volume scatter works, which is a lot easier to use. Let's see. We might have to pull the GPU off to see. Crap. Anybody know a hotkey for the recover? No. Let's go back in. See what's, oh, there is no hotkey. Okay. So let's take that out, and we're going to use a regular just principled BSDF and make sure that this works. Okay, so that works just fine. Now let's put in a volume scatter. Maybe that's that is crashing it. So let's try just putting this in. So we're not even going to remove this. We're just going to keep it like that. Okay, so that didn't crash it. So let's take this down to a 0. So now it's see-through. And I think we can... Maybe this? Uh-oh. Looks like we killed it again. No. No. Don't crash me, Frodo. Okay. Awesome. I read that this was supposed to be fixed. This is very disappointing. Oy, oy, oy. Okay, let's hide all this stuff. I shouldn't have to do that, Soulnate. I did this before. Yeah, I did this before, and I didn't have a problem with it. And I'm not exactly sure why this issue